The ceasefire in Gaza is in its sixth day, and Hamas has released two more hostages today, Russian Israeli citizens, as negotiators continue to discuss a possible extension. This pause has allowed UN relief workers to reach northern Gaza and deliver humanitarian aid there for the first time since the war began. With us now is Juliette Touma. She's Director of Communications for UNRWA, the UN Palestine Refugee Agency. She was in Gaza a few days ago and is now on the line from Amman, Jordan. Juliette, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Since this temporary ceasefire began now 6 days ago, what aid has been able to get into Gaza?
Certainly, this pause that kicked off a few days ago has been, first of all, a relief for the people in Gaza. When I was there just a few days ago, people were talking only about the pause because they've been through 50 days of brutal war, of displacement, uncertainty, fear. And what this pause meant from a humanitarian perspective is that we were able indeed to bring in more supplies than before the pause. We've seen deliveries of fuel for humanitarian purposes, so that's very, very welcome. We've also seen the delivery of cooking gas for the first time in 50 plus days. And we had breakthroughs to areas that we were not able to access before.
Based on your visit there and your team on the ground in Gaza, can you sketch out a picture of life in northern Gaza? I understand a small convoy of UN relief trucks arrived there for the first time since October 7th.
Yes, our director in Gaza has been to Jabalia, which is the largest Palestine refugee camp in Gaza. Before the war, you see, it used to be home to 120,000 people. We continue to have shelters in the area. We continue to have teams, which is absolutely admirable. Teams who continue to serve, for example, one doctor who operates a health clinic, another sanitation worker who makes sure that people have water. This is despite heavy bombardment in that area. This is despite what our staff reported as unprecedented levels of destruction. This is despite the fact that many people have left. There continues to be people there who are in need of our assistance.
Give us a little picture of the health and medical reality there, based on the doctors, the medical experts you've been able to connect with the last few days.
It's not just in the north. The important thing about the north is the UN has finally been able to access it. But I would say across the board, Scott, is a terrible situation for almost 2 million people, right? 1.1 million people are taking refuge in UNRWA facilities and shelters. This is unprecedented. The UN doesn't normally do this. Gaza is the only place in the world where we do this. I visited one of those shelters, by the way. People are literally on top of each other. There's very little clean water. People have to queue for hours to go to the toilet or to the shower. So it's only a matter of time that we're going to start seeing more diseases spreading, and we're going to sadly see people dying as a result of the siege.
You mentioned disease. What are the other most urgent risks across Gaza right now? Food, water, electricity?
We're talking about people who were forced to flee their homes overnight, and some of them only with their clothes on them. They've lost everything and they need everything. And winter is fast approaching. It was very cold when we were there. It rained the day before. The place was flooded, miserable. People don't have blankets. People don't have winter clothes. It's really the basics.
I wonder if there's a conversation you had with a person, a family in Gaza from the last few days that really stays with you, that you can tell us about.
Yes, it's the huge loss, including at UNRWA. We lost more than 110 UNRWA colleagues. Many of them were killed with their families. It's the biggest loss the UN has endured in terms of personnel ever since the United Nations started working. And these were colleagues of ours who were doctors, teachers, one gynecologist, in fact, one of the very few gynecologists, Serene. She was killed with her daughter. 111 colleagues were killed during this war.
Yeah. Your agency has called for a full humanitarian ceasefire. If and when your team brings this call to the relevant leaders, the Hamas leaders in Gaza, the Israeli leaders in Israel, what is their response? How does that conversation go?
We are telling the world, we have been for weeks on end, it is time for a humanitarian ceasefire. There are no winners in this war, and there is no competition in suffering. And it is time for a long-term political, peaceful solution. It is long overdue. The longer this war goes on, the farther we are from a solution and the more isolated the sides are.
We've been talking to Juliette Touma, Director of Communications for the UN Palestine Refugee Agency. Juliette, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Very good to speak to you.